Imagine starting your day like countless others. The alarm blares, you scramble out of bed, dash through traffic, clock in at your job, grind through hours of tasks, collect your paycheck, and yet, at the end of it all, you still feel financially drained. It's not that you're unmotivated or reckless. Far from it. You're ensnared in a subtle web, engineered so artfully that even the brightest and most diligent individuals get tangled up. And here's the chilling reality. You could be imprisoned in this web right this instant, completely unaware of the bars holding you back. In this discussion, I'll expose the concealed financial snares that confine nearly everyone to a life of scarcity, no matter how diligently they toil. These aren't overt pitfalls. They're insidious, creeping in under the guise of everyday choices. Let's dive into the first one. Snare 1. The ease entanglement. Many overlook that the initial and most perilous financial snare emerges the instant existence feels sufficiently manageable. Ease doesn't manifest as extravagance. It creeps in as a sigh of respite. It hits when you secure a steady paycheck, when the dread of mere subsistence begins to ebb, and you mutter to yourself, "At least I'm getting by." That fleeting sense of calm ignites a subtle yet lethal pattern. Ease convinces you there's ample time ahead. It assures you of safety. It persuades you that the drive to evolve can be postponed, perhaps next week or next quarter or next year. Since advancement demands effort while ease offers tranquility, your psyche instinctively opts for the simpler route. Gradually, imperceptibly, you halt acquiring fresh abilities because your current role compensates adequately. You cease challenging yourself, as exertion disrupts your hard-won equilibrium. You shy away from gambles, fearing they might shatter the delicate security you've attained. You prioritize today's stability over tomorrow's prosperity. You evade hurdles not out of incapacity, but because ease deems them superfluous. The perilous aspect? Ease masquerades as advancement. You label yourself prudent, grounded, content, yet inwardly, you sense stagnation. Existence morphs into a monotonous cycle. Rise, labor, return home, unwind, slumber, and repeat. As seasons slip by, you vow to pursue aspirations someday, but that someday recedes further with each layer of comfort. Ease murmurs that inertia is wiser than innovation. It obscures your capabilities by fostering reliance on the predictable. The longer you linger in this vortex, the tougher escape becomes as you dread upheaval more than mediocrity. This is why ease is the quiet destroyer of drive. Not with a bang, but a gradual erosion, akin to a hidden leak that ultimately capsizes the vessel. It condemns hordes to relive identical financial chapters, never destitute enough to jolt into action, yet never affluent enough to thrive, dwelling in a hushed limbo where visions dim, moments vanish, and untapped potential expires soundlessly. To break free, start small. Set a daily growth ritual, like reading a finance book for 15 minutes or learning one new skill weekly. This disrupts the ease by injecting intentional discomfort. Snare 2. The mirage of advancement. Among the most treacherous snares imprisoning folks in destitution is the mirage of advancement. The notion that constant busyness equates to genuine headway. Countless individuals bustle through existence in perpetual motion. Early risers, office-bound, juggling duties, responding to pings, resolving crises, firefighting, then crashing into bed depleted, convinced they've conquered productivity. Yet, motion isn't propulsion, and hustle isn't accomplishment. This snare thrives on its allure. It doles out fleeting gratification. I accomplished heaps today, despite none of it inching you toward fiscal independence. You conflate haste with significance, presuming task completion signifies progress. But the chores most obsess over: emails, chats, errands, habits. Don't forge assets, expertise, or riches. They merely sustain your current reality. The mirage ensnares by dispensing emotional payoffs, minor thrills of achievement that energize you while your circumstances stay stagnant. You fancy yourself industrious, but you're merely sprinting on a stationary belt leading nowhere. Decades elapse, and hindsight reveals a life of frenzy without strategy. You managed obligations but altered no course. You endured days without crafting a legacy. This mirage is lethal because it persuades you no overhaul is needed. It insists diligence suffices. Yet, affluence arises not from volume of action, but from consistent, purposeful deeds. Until you shatter this illusion, exhaustion, overwhelm, and lag will plague you, even at peak effort. The stark truth: society compensates for value, not exertion. Frenzy sans aim yields zero worth. This explains why myriad dedicated laborers languish in poverty. Not from lacking resolve, but from mistaking activity for efficacy. And this delusion shackles them for lifetimes. Extend this. Consider tracking your week. Log activities and ask, does this build wealth or just fill time? If it's the latter, delegate or eliminate it. Replace with one high-impact action, like researching investments. Snare 3, the subsistence spiral. The subsistence spiral ranks as one of the most constricting snares, confining your mentality to a 30-day enclosure where choices revolve solely around bridging to the following month. It commences innocently. You generate income, settle accounts, cover necessities, and squander any remainder on minor indulgences to evade the grind strain. But as the pattern recurs monthly, you mentally fragment into brief sprints, fixated on the immediate, oblivious to the distant horizon. You cease contemplating 5 years ahead, as enduring the next 5 days feels paramount. Your cognition adapts to alarm at bill arrivals, unwind post-payday, and perpetuate the taxing loop infinitely. The direst facet. This existence seems standard, mirrored by peers. You deem paycheck-to-paycheck living as life's norm. You accept strain as maturity's hallmark. You defer aspirations until conditions improve, yet they never do, as the spiral siphons your hours, funds, and vitality monthly. Investments elude you, interrupted by urgencies. Risks terrify you, fearing loss of scant stability. Wealth building demands patience, foresight, and mental bandwidth, the very elements the spiral pilfers. Over time, ambitions dwindle, objectives contract, self-assurance fades. You forsake envisioning possibilities, concentrating solely on averting calamities. That's the ploy. The subsistence spiral occupies you with mere survival, precluding victory. It compresses your outlook around pressing issues, eclipsing the grand scheme. You endure financially but perish emotionally, ensnared in toil without progression. This spiral doesn't merely perpetuate poverty. It breeds despair, resignation, and the belief that destiny lies beyond your grasp. To escape, build an emergency fund first. Aim for 3 to 6 months' expenses. This creates breathing room, allowing long-term thinking. Snare 4, the borrowing delusion. Borrowing stands as the most beguiling snare, cloaking itself as expediency, advancement, and opportunity. It coaxes, why delay? Claim it instantly. Amid life's burdens, most acquiesce. The inaugural transaction feels benign. A modest installment, a loan vowed to repay swiftly, a card swipe akin to a boon from your prospective self. Yet, borrowing doesn't borrow from tomorrow. It usurps it. Each pledged payment chains your fiscal liberty, subtly curtailing choices and amplifying tension. As borrowing remains covert initially, individuals fail to detect their descent. It commences with one installment, then accumulates until paydays arrive pre-committed. You labor not for yourself, but for creditors, institutions, and entities profiting from your impatience. Borrowing dupes by granting today's solace, exacting tomorrow's agony. It inflates your perceived wealth, though you're essentially leasing unearned funds. Emotional tolls worsen. Guilt, unease, humiliation, ensnared by figures you dread confronting. The snare tightens as debt deters gambles, prospects, and ventures. You're perpetually playing catch-up. Aspirations evaporate as debt commandeers the cognitive space for envisioning betterment. You postpone pivotal choices, rebuff growth avenues, evade shifts, and cling to steadiness, unable to tolerate volatility. Gradually, debt morphs into your covert overseer, dictating your schedule, selections, destiny, even persona. By realization's dawn, debt has sculpted your fiscal fate. It absconds with your future so stealthily, you scarcely perceive it. Hence, it incarcerates multitudes eternally. Not due to recklessness, but faith in purchasing time, when truly you were vending it. Add depth. Include a real-world example. Imagine buying a car on credit. The monthly payments eat into savings, preventing home ownership or retirement planning. Snare 5. The escalating expectations trap. Escalating expectations constitutes one of the subtlest snares, arriving not as calamity but as recompense. It infiltrates upon a raise, surplus earnings, or sensed improvement. Rather than channeling extras toward liberating from long-standing fiscal strain, your mind urges, you've earned a treat. Thus, you indulge in a sleek gadget, finer attire, occasional outings, premium services, a loftier abode, or an enhanced vehicle. No choice seems perilous. They embody upliftment, life's enhancement. Yet, stealthily, your revamped routine solidifies as the new norm, expenditures inflating to match revenue. Abruptly, funds presumed to bestow freedom induce greater anxiety, as you must uphold the elevated existence. Once expectations expand, regression equates to defeat. So, instead of trimming costs, you intensify earnings, labor relentlessly, hustle incessantly, pursuing income merely to sustain an unessential lifestyle. Escalating expectations erodes riches by normalizing each enhancement as minor, rational, warranted. Despite accumulation sabotaging investment, conservation, or enduring asset formation, you prioritize indulgence over mission. You acquire superfluous items to dazzle indifferent onlookers. You pursue sensations over emancipation. The gravest blow? It masquerades as triumph, persuading you of ascent while covertly ensuring perpetual fiscal duress. It moors you to loftier obligations, amplified anticipations, unending strain. By recognition's point, individuals toil fiercer than ever to preserve a facade yielding no wealth proximity. Enhance. Suggest a lifestyle audit. Review expenses monthly and question if each aligns with true goals, cutting non-essentials to redirect funds toward savings. Snare 6. The postponement plague. This snare proves lethal, rooted wholly in benevolent motives. Nearly all harbor belief in future fiscal rectification. They pledge to commence conserving later, investing later, mastering abilities later, launching ventures later, and confronting finances later. Later offer security, permitting current unease evasion while feigning responsibility. But later deceives. It never materializes. Arrival prompts deferral anew, as cognition favors solace over rigor, delight over strategizing, repose over accountability. Each deferment escalates future costs and diminishes temporal value. Eyeing investments, you muse, next month, yet it brings fresh outlays, stresses, pretexts. Contemplating skill building, you think, when stability returns, but equilibrium eludes. The prolonged delay complicates all, for time reigns as wealth's paramount architect. Once forfeited, it's irretrievable. Later ensnares via innocuousness. You're not spurning growth, merely adjourning. This illusions control. Unseen, each pause accumulates into opportunity's forfeiture, compounding's loss, impetus's erosion, assurance's depletion. Awakening reveals 5 years aged, a decade deeper entrenched, inhabiting the identical existence once vowed to abandon. Later annihilates vision subtly, tenderly, evading culpability until irreparable. It's a covert bandit pilfering your tomorrow, one innocuous verdict at a time. The poignant truth: you weren't awaiting opportune moments. You were merely apprehensive. To counter, adopt the 5-second rule. When a positive thought arises like starting savings, act within 5 seconds to avoid overthinking. Snare 7. The peer influence cage. Peer influence emerges as a snare so potent, most misidentify it as routine existence. It ignites upon valuing others' opinions, societal norms, companions' pursuits, and comparative standings. Choices stem not from personal ambitions, but desired appearances. You procure unaffordable luxuries because peers possess them. You partake in irrelevant gatherings to avoid eccentricity. You elevate vehicle, device, wardrobe fearing obsolescence. You pursue alien milestones, unaffordable nuptials, debt-inducing domiciles, stifling lifestyles impressing strangers, but asphyxiating you. The snare functions via identity infiltration. It equates triumph with optics, not substance. It elevates endorsement above liberty. It nudges short-term affirmation over enduring solidity. Gradually, you inhabit others' anticipations. Individuals who'd forsake you in collapse. Peer influence evolves into fiscal incarceration, compelling expenditure on valueless pursuits. It instills worth measurement via tangible emblems, not inner maturation. It sustains labor for facade upkeep, not legacy construction. The direst aspect? Unawareness of entrapment, as environs mirror it. They're ensnared too, yet grin, feign, showcase online highlights, convincing you of lag. Peer influence depletes finances, hours, vigor, assurance, visions. It supplants desired life with mandated one. Until ceasing applause pursuit, poverty persists, irrespective of earnings. Expand. Add social media's role. Algorithms amplify comparisons, pushing impulse buys. Break free by unfollowing influencers and focusing on personal metrics. Snare 8. The ownership void. The culminating, most ruinous snare entails dedicating a lifetime to arduous toil, income generation, relentless hustle, yet possessing naught that proliferates autonomously. This ensues as most are conditioned as laborers, not proprietors. They barter hours for currency lifelong, equating earnings with riches, whereas earnings evaporate upon cessation. Assets accrue passively even in slumber. Yet, multitudes omit asset cultivation, engrossed in subsistence, daunted by ventures, diverted by outlays, fixated on ephemeral comforts. They expend decades earning, dissipating swiftly. No sown fiscal seeds maturing into groves. This feels customary, society extolling perpetual grinders, seldom imparting escape. Employment seems safeguard, yet merely until forfeiture, devoid of assets. Investments, enterprises, proficiencies, intellectual holdings, revenue streams. You lack enduring shield, entire dependence on stamina, hours, labor capacity. Aging diminishes this inherently. The snare seals in 40s, 50s, 60s, unveiling decades of toil yielding naught but stress recollections and fatigue. No residual revenue, no buffer, no affluence, merely perpetuating cycles till time expires. The ownership void explains 99% poverty persistence. Not income dearth, but failure converting to proprietorship. Lifelong expenditure enriches others, never self-building. By truth revelation, that solely assets engender wealth, often belated. Yet, early escapers revolutionize futures. Asset initiation shifts reliance from exertion to astute construction. Deepen. Introduce passive income ideas like dividend stocks or rental properties with beginner steps. Snare 9. The fear of failure fetters. Added extension a ninth snare, often intertwined with others, is the fear of failure fetters. The paralyzing dread of missteps that halts action entirely. Many envision colossal blunders, investments tanking, ventures collapsing, judgments backfiring. This terror, rooted in past setbacks or societal narratives, keeps you stagnant. You rationalize inaction as prudence, yet it perpetuates poverty by barring growth avenues. Fear whispers, better safe than sorry, but safety in inaction yields zero returns. It fosters analysis paralysis, where overthinking supplants doing. To shatter this, reframe failure as tuition. Each misstep educates. Begin minuscule. Invest $50 in a low-risk fund, or launch a side gig with minimal stakes. Over time, confidence builds, transforming fear into fuel. These fiscal snares operate covertly, devoid of clamor or alerts. They infiltrate as solace, routine normality. Yet, awareness catalyzes transformation. You abandon autopilot, reject assigned existence, commence crafting desired life. Riches aren't coincidental, they're deliberate. A resolve to liberate, a resolve to rethink, a resolve to transcend patterns trapping 99%. If this resonated, altering perspective momentarily, you're ahead. You're embarked on a path most never initiate. Before departing, commit one act. Embrace forward-propelling notions over hindrances. Subscribe for ongoing insights. Like if enlightening. Comment on the snare resonating most. Share with needing ears. A single piece can ignite metamorphosis. An epiphany can redirect. A choice can overhaul fiscal destiny. Your liberation commences presently.